Welcome to the Blockchain VC, a podcast about crypto and the digital assets ecosystem. My name is Tomer Federman, and I'm the managing partner at Federman Capital. We invest in the most promising blockchain startups across the globe. I have more than 15 years of experience in tech, and before starting the fund, I was on the product side at Facebook, where I led product strategy and global growth of some of Facebook's major ad products. Previously, I also lived in Silicon Valley for a few years, where I attended Stanford Business School. You can find me on Twitter at Tomer Federman. Before we begin, please note that this podcast is for informational purposes only, and all the opinions expressed on this show, either by guests or me, do not reflect the opinions of Federman Capital. Nothing on the Blockchain VC podcast represents an investment or financial advice. Please do your own research. Also, if you like this episode of the Blockchain VC and want to help bring more awareness to the space, I'd really appreciate it if you can rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. This only takes a few seconds and helps get the word out. Okay, let's do this. Really excited to welcome to the show today Jason Goldberg, founder and CEO of Pepo by OST. Jason, welcome to the show.
Tomer, thanks so much for having me, and it's really great to be here.
Yeah, really excited to have you on the show. I think you have such a diverse and interesting background. So would love to hear more about your experience before starting Pepo.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, how far back do you want to go? I mean, let me put it this way. My first internet company, so to speak, I was working on AOL chat rooms back in 1998. So it's what 22 years now of in the space, and
competing with the ICQ.
So I did work with ICQ. I worked with AIM as well, and did a lot with community then. And I went from AOL to being one of the product managers launching T-Mobile Hotspot, which was the first nationwide hotspot network in the U.S. And then I started a company called Jobster in 2002. I had this crazy idea back in 2002 that people might use social networks for recruiting. And so we had an idea that people might, use online networking to find people to hire. And so we're a little before our time. I think, Reid Hoffman got that one better than we did, but we built some really cool enterprise tools to help companies recruit through networking. And then in the late 2000s, I started a company called Social Median in 2008. And really hit that one at the right time. We were the first kind of social news aggregator where you could find what to read every day based on what the people that you were connected to online were reading. And we rode that in 2008 with the election that year and the financial crisis from launch to sell the company with millions of users within 9 months. And that was a really nice success. That was before, basically before the App Store. So it was kind of when you could have just a website, and really grow massive user bases, less competition back then. Those were the days. Those were the days, but it's okay. Competition makes you work harder. It's good. I like to say today that back then, just really good smarts and kind of product sense, and you could really build something if you hit the market right. Today, you need to really figure out a pain point and solve something that people really need. Absolutely. It's a lot different today. And what else? I'll just round out then after that, I started the acquiring company was a company called Zing, which was like the LinkedIn of Europe. I went and was the chief product officer there as a public company. So I did that in Hamburg, Germany for 2009 and helped them reshape their strategy. And it was awesome. I mean, their stock went up to like tenfold since then and really great success. And then started a company called Fabulous in 2010, which morphed into fab.com in 2011, which at one point was the fastest growing e-commerce website in the world. We went from basically a cold start to selling $20 million in our first 6 months to, so it was 2011 to $115 million in 2012. 140 million in 2013, and then it crashed. And that was a a million lessons all in one in terms of speed can be something that helps you, but also can be something that could really kill you if you don't manage it right. And frankly, we got crushed by Amazon. I mean, it was the whole story there. And I think if you see what Amazon's done over the last 8 years since then, you really get a sense of the story. But we were one of the first to really see that we built something really interesting, and then Amazon just completely crushed our business and the margins, and they with free shipping anywhere anywhere in the world and they could follow fast and find all the products that we were selling they could sell. So that was that story. But then after that,
Yeah, competing with Amazon is no easy feat.
really tough. Yeah. And so then a couple things after that is, so within Fab, we had a really interesting private label design business that we carved out when we sold Fab. So we sold Fab in 2014. And we carved out, we didn't sell this kind of one part of the business that I thought really had some legs to it. And we rebranded that as hem.com, which means home in Swedish. And that was a really cool story. So 2015, we built that into a nice business with good margins and sold that to Vitra, 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 billion-dollar Swiss-German furniture design maker. And that was a nice little kind of after story of Fab. And then after that, I started the company I work on now. So in early 2016, I looked out at kind of the world and kind of what was happening with crypto and digital currency. And I think while a lot of people saw all sorts of things, what I saw the opportunity to have kind of really kind of a next generation payments and microtransactions. And the seismic shift that I saw was the ability to have kind of zero fee or very low cost microtransactions would be a game changer. That microtransactions are impossible in today's kind of credit card and kind of Stripe, PayPal billing kind of landscape, because they take a minimum 30-cent fee and 2.8% because of what the banks and Visa, MasterCard charge them. And you move that to decentralized peer-to-peer networks and with public validator sets, and you can get that down to fractions of cents. And so what I saw back in 2016 was, well, if we do that and we could create basically tools, let's say the operating system of this next generation payment system, that could be a really interesting play that you can embed into businesses and basically create the internet of money on a very large scale. And that's what I've been working on for the last, since early 2016.
Yeah, so would love to talk more about that in a second, but a couple of points on your, previous experience. First of all, I might surprise you. I don't know if you remember, it's not the first time that we talk.
Right. I know you went to the GSB, as did I. It's my memory. Yeah.
Yeah. So years ago, right, when I was at the GSB at the Stanford Business School, you obviously attended that as well before me. Shortly after I started the program, a group of us worked on this paper comparing LinkedIn to Sing.
Ah, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and we actually reached out to you.
Awesome.
And you were so gracious. You took the time and you talked with us. We interviewed you for the paper, right? The idea was comparing LinkedIn to Zing, figuring out, what worked for them. And
now I remember it. That's so cool.
You were a senior executive there, but you took the time to talk to this group of students working on this paper and provided some really great insights.
I really appreciate you saying that. And, my attitude towards that is like, why wouldn't you? It's like I was a student once, and I, wish I could get in touch with people who are in that position. And I also take the same attitude with like I try every product. I mean, I try. I'm just hungry, curious for information. Just try to be very open minded. I know there's some people, they say they're so busy that they're just heads down, focusing on their own thing. And my approach is, the only way to to keep building interesting businesses and products in this space. And I'm really at my core, I'm a product manager, product designer, is you got to stay curious and you got to try everything, talk to as many people as possible, and just keep learning.
Absolutely. So yeah, it was a fun experience back then, and it's always good to reconnect. One question about Fab, right? Obviously, like you mentioned, it was huge at the time. You raised, I think, like $330 million or so?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. It was a unicorn when very few actually existed.
We were one of the first unicorns, yes. And at one point, I mean, crazy stats. I mean, you think like at one point, I remember there was these stats like in the first 6-9 months of Fab, we had grown our user base faster than Facebook did at that stage, faster than
Wow.
And it was insane. It's crazy. Like we had 5 million people sign up for an e-commerce website in like 6 months. It was like, what the hell? Right?
Crazy.
And I mean, it's just going to show like, we hit a zeitgeist, right? So we hit a kind of we had this, the whole fab thing was basically, we carefully curated design products to help people who are, less design savvy figure out how to kind of deck out their life. And no one was doing it at the time. I mean, today, like here at e-commerce, there's a million of them and there's all sorts of variations of it. We were the first ones to do it. We also, frankly, we were the first ones to really figure out Facebook advertising. And so, one of the lessons there is if you're first into something that is going to be a hockey stick of growth, and you're the first ones to figure it out, you can really gain an arbitrage competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And in the first year, our cohorts are awesome. We were requiring people really cheap. We figured out, we kind of cracked the code on Facebook advertising. And then what happened is Facebook wrote a case study about us, and everyone followed into the same thing, and the whole market dried up. Because basically, like the cost of acquisition like quadrupled, right? And just
right.
All of a sudden, the advantage we had, like they sold out our advantage.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So curious, what were if you had to say like the top 2 or 3 takeaways from that crazy experience, what did you learn?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, look, first of all, it was heart-wrenching to go through, building a company. We went from zero to hero so fast, and then to go from hero to bust, kind of equally as fast it was a horrific experience for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And I never want to do that again. And I said I learned so many lessons. One thing I'll tell you is every business is different, and every business experience is different. I have, one of the investors in Fab was a guy named Howard Morgan, a legendary investor at First Round Capital. One of the investors in Uber and many other great companies. And Howard was, he invested in Fab before it was Fab, when it was fabulous. Then we pivoted to Fab, and he invested in this company in OST. I saw him the other day, and he's like, Jason, if you think back on your experience of the last 10 years, just think about how different Fab and OST are. Fab was a rocket ship from day one, and we rode that, and unfortunately, we weren't able to kind of cross over to the other side. OST is a slow burn. You're building something that we've been in product development for 4 years, and we're just heads down, hankering away, and trying to build something that is build something that show a use case, get people to adopt it, learn from talking to people, do the next one. We have a 15, 20-year vision on this, and we know it's going to take time. It's just every startup's different. So like I say, lessons from Fab is it's a lot. I mean, one is, if you first of all, I would never want to compete against Amazon and e-commerce again. I never want to.
Yeah, that's lesson number 1.
Yeah, I never want to really, push deal with logistics and physical products again if I don't have to, unless you have private label, super high margins, and something really unique and kind of special there. I'd say also just that, just as fast it goes up, it can go down, and so you have to really, really think through kind of and plan for that. Plan for all stages of the business. That the people who are, I think also from a people perspective, there's different types of people and culture you need in a company at various stages, and certain people are really good at kind of wartime. Some people better peacetime, and you see some of the growing pains of companies like Uber and WeWork have had with those sort of situations as well, where it's like hyper growth gets you one kind of culture, but then you might need to transition to something else. Other lessons, just I'm at my best when I'm being a product designer, when I'm talking to users, figuring out what they need, and then designing products to meet those needs. And at Fab, I kind of morphed into an operations logistics guy, and that's not my sweet spot. That's stick with what you're good at.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you think, like in hindsight, you should have moved maybe slower? And
I mean, I would say that a couple things on that is like, as I said, we did about $115 million in sales in our first full calendar year. And if we had, as a company, as a board, had said, let's get the business profitable at this level.
Which, by the way, back then was absolutely nuts, right? It's not, people think about now. Yeah. It's still super impressive, but back then it was almost unheard of.
Yeah. But like here, it's like, if we had at the board meeting room, if we had a conversation of, hey, this is fantastic, let's get this business now, profitable at really good margins at this 115 million. If the conversation was that instead of was 115, let's go for 250, and then after 250, let's go for $1 billion. Then if we let's had stopped and kind of iron out the the unit economics and the business metrics at 115 to 150 million, Fab probably would have been a great success, and it would have turned out very differently.
Yeah.
The other thing is just also we as an e-commerce play, I think we went international globally way too fast, and I think for some types of businesses you can do that if it's less kind of capital intensive and less kind of physical intensive. But for e-commerce play with shipping physical goods, it was too fast for us to go out. We should have gotten it right in the U.S. and then moved overseas. I mean, it's not, it's very different than it's like Airbnb or Uber, where it's basically build a playbook around a digital product and then just kind of put some people on the ground to kind of build the local market. I mean, we had to build operations, logistics centers, and shipping, kind of next day shipping all across Europe in addition to the US. And it was just too much to try to manage that on two continents at the same time. And again, hindsight's 2020. At the time, we thought, okay, we're going to own this market and build $1 billion, revenue company, not $1 billion market cap, but $1 billion revenue company within 4 years. And it looked like we were going to be able to do it, and then we just, we didn't make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like a crazy ride.
Yeah. I will say of all the things that I'm, thankful and proud of, though, of my journey since then, one of them is that so many of the investors in Fab are investors and supporters of the business that I've been running for the last 4 years.
So that is remarkable. How come, right? Because for someone looking from the outside, I would think some of the investors got burned, and it's going to be very difficult to convince them to invest in a new business.
Yeah,
How did you do that? Yeah. How did you manage that relationship to a point where they're now investors in your new company?
I mean, I put it this way. We were all at the same board meetings. We all looked at the same numbers. Everyone, there was full transparency, full honesty, full debate about the various directions. There was never a sense that anyone was, doing something nefarious or something that, mismanaging. We all were in decisions together. And the investors, most of them at the end said, hey, look, we gave it a try. We made some calls that weren't the right call. We had some misfortune with Amazon deciding to really come in and try to, crush us, and which they very much did. I mean, literally in the first year of Fab, we would sell products and you wouldn't see them on Amazon for a couple of weeks. And then within the second year, it was within 24 hours, we would find a product, make it famous on Fab, and then it'd be next day on Amazon with free shipping anywhere in the world. So essentially we were the curators for Amazon. And it's just not sustainable. But yeah, so the investors, when I was wrapping up, Fab and then Hem, the first one to come to me was, James Mitchell, who runs strategy and investments at Tencent. Tencent put, I think it was $50 million into Fab. They were one of the largest investors. They led the last round, and James said, whatever you do next, we want to be involved. We believe in you, and we believe that you're going to build a great product. And that was one of the most, you can imagine how bad we felt after that. And for someone to tell you that after they put so much money into previous business, it really made me feel great. And Tencent's been a great supporter of this current business. As I said, Howard Morgan from First Round Capital, Alan Morgan, who was on the board of Fab as well, is a legendary Silicon Valley investor. So many folks who were David Bonnet, who was involved, one of the first board members of Fab. He built GeoCities way back when, and he's an investor in OST technology. And so it's just been great that, for the most part, everyone's been very supportive.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that's a really important lesson for anyone listening, especially entrepreneurs. When I engage with entrepreneurs, sometimes I get the sense that they want to hide the bad stuff, right? And they want to be maybe a bit secretive about that and paint a rosier picture. What I think many of them are lacking in understanding is that actually by being transparent and really sharing not just the good stuff, but also the bad stuff and the challenges, investors get that, certainly ones that have entrepreneurial experience, and they actually really appreciate that. And in fact, when you look at the stats, right, everyone realizes that most startups fail. That's just the statistics. So by being transparent and being really honest about these challenges that sometimes you face as an entrepreneur, investors really appreciate that, and you can build long-lasting relationship with them, even if the end outcome is not always a success.
Yeah, and look, you can lose a lot in business, but if you lose your integrity, you lost everything. And what I
Exactly.
mean by that is like you can recover from so many things. Just you can't recover from lying, and you can't recover from people not trusting you or believing you. And that's something that's just, you got to maintain that. And then it's a relationship business, and then I also think investors appreciate people who are product focused, who want to figure out problems, who think about it from a product perspective first, which I very much pride myself in, and then also people who are willing to persevere and get up to bat again.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about Pepo and what you're building now. How did you get into the blockchain and crypto space? And then if you can talk, Jason, about what Pepo is and the problem you're trying to address.
Yeah. So interesting enough, in 2016, our team, we actually built an app called Pepo, and the whole idea of Pepo was we saw that digital currency was coming. We saw that it was going to open up new abilities to kind of monetize in-app actions, to enable creators, makers, influencers to monetize kind of their creations, to have direct relationships between, let's say, makers and creators and their fans, their supporters, not to go through platforms and middlemen. And we designed Pepo at first to be a platform for that, was what basically the idea. And we actually launched an app that didn't have any of the economics in it. It was just kind of, we worked on some of the app elements first. And then we dove headfirst really into trying to figure out, all right, what do we need to do in order to build kind of like economies within this application? Because the app we built was basically a way for influencers to create a channel, to post things to to their followers, and then the idea was then they could sell things directly to their followers. Maybe it's kind of tips, advice, answer questions, videos, photos, recommendations, whatever it might be. And so, for instance, we were working with kind of travel and food bloggers who would kind of say, okay, I'll give you my top 10 list for Madrid and I'll charge you 99 cents for it, or create a perfect 48-hour itinerary for you. And so we got to like thinking, how do we create the economy in this, and how do we kind of get this going? Because microtransactions is like this holy grail, but they've been kind of impossible to do given the fee structure of kind of credit cards and online payments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we dove like headfirst into Ethereum and programmable money, and we had the aha moment where we realized that, okay, we can do this. It's going to take several years to build the technology to make it possible, but we can do this. And if we do it, we'll do it not just for Pepo, but for all the apps, for any app that wants to, turn the like into a value transfer, or to have every upvote transfer value, or to use a couple cents here, a couple cents there to maybe reduce spam or provide incentives and rewards, whatever it might be, to unlock content instead of paying $10 subscriptions to be able to pay a penny at a time for an article. How you make all that possible. And so we basically pivoted the entire business towards building the technology platform to enable these kind of low cost microtransactions using cryptocurrency and using Ethereum as technology. And so from 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, we built a full stack technology platform. It's called OST technology. That is by far out ahead of the market in terms of providing basically the world's first seamlessly embeddable Ethereum layer 2 wallet that you can embed into any app, and in doing so, turn any in-app action into a value transfer without end users having to know that it's even crypto, for them to be able to use crypto without even having to write down kind of long strings, or to sign every transaction, to even know what gas is, or any of that stuff. We've completely removed all that stuff and focused on great user experience, and built an SDK that is embeddable into any application, with transactions that can be all kind of validated on the layer 2 Ethereum blockchain, and then proven back to layer 1 with our technology. It's a whole lot in that stack that we can go through, but all, all do that with transactions that are at a fraction of a cent each. And that's basically what we've built. And so we built this solution, this technology stack. We got to a place towards basically April of last year, April 2019, where we saw that this platform is usable, it's ready, it's robust, it's we had we're great with great security advisors, and we felt like we were ready to take it to market. And I looked out at the market and I said, for this technology to get mainstream adoption, there's a few things that we had to kind of put together. And one is I said kind of like I had like my 4 things. One is we needed to have kind of tools that developers can use, and that's what we had built. Then the second is we needed people who are willing to we needed like some use cases and proof points to kind of show that this stuff works. And the third is we need to kind of say like early adopters to get their neck and then kind of try it. And then we need then the people scale it up and follow from there. But for the use cases, we made the strategic decision in April last year to just go build something ourselves. And that's where we went back to the Pepo brand, and actually very similar to the original concept. And we did over 1,000 interviews with people just talking about their online behaviors and habits and their content creation and consumption. And then we designed an app, Pepo, basically to showcase the OST technology, to showcase that crypto user experiences can be additive, not detracting from the experience. That you could have a great kind of user experience where crypto makes the experience better, not worse. And we launched Pepo as an app in October of last year at DevCon, and it's been awesome ever since. We've on both sides. One is Pepo's an app where you can create 30-second videos where every upvote carries value. So every like carries value. You can have person-to-person transfers. It's the first crypto app with in-app purchase and cash out options approved by Apple in the App Store. Work very closely with our lawyers and the kind of the regulatory environment. So we really took care to make it a great experience all around. And now the result of that is we have a very active user base. We're one of the top 15 dApps in the world in terms of usage on a regular basis. We've done hundreds more interviews with our users of Pepo, the early adopters, and we've gotten tons of feedback that are going into kind of a whole new set of features that we're building to kind of before we kind of blow this out beyond kind of an early adopter audience. And those are going to start launching in February. Some really great stuff that's coming kind of in coordination with some of the events come up like ETH Denver and ECC in Paris. And so we're really building some things towards kind of big audiences in crypto. And then we're going to blow this thing out beyond just kind of the crypto world. And then the other thing that's really happened that's amazing is the Pepo app has made all the OST technology tangible. And so we've had so many companies have come to us now and have said, we want what you did with Pepo in our app or on our website. And so it's driven kind of come full circle, driven so much business for OST because in the end, we're a tools business. It's a developer tools to embed an Ethereum wallet into any application and to have low cost microtransactions. And that's so the plan's working, the flywheel is working, and then we're very excited about where we're at right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. So a couple of things I really like about what you just said. When I talk to people who are not in the weeds on crypto and the blockchain space in general, I think many of them realize, I can probably save some money using blockchain, and maybe there are some trade-offs there. But what I keep telling them is like the most exciting thing about it is not necessarily the savings. It's all these new products and services that you're now able to build that just couldn't exist before, right? And the micropayments example is a great one.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people said what we're building is equivalent to, let's say, Stripe of blockchain, right? So Stripe is a couple lines of code, an SDK you can use to accept payments on a website. And we look as well if AWS databases are the cloud kind of, database. Well, then blockchain is the next gen of that. And if Stripe is the current kind of, let's say, payment SDK, well, OST is the next generation kind of micropayment SDK using blockchain. And that's kind of how, roughly how we look at our business. And the idea there is, if you think about if there was embedded into the internet the ability in any application or any website to have value transfers with any interaction, whether it's I upvoted this or I liked this or whatever it might be, every 4-star review or whatever it is, that if you have even in like this the cents or a couple pennies here and there of kind of value transfer, that changes so many things. It's like, and especially if it doesn't go through anybody. If you basically say you don't have to give 30 cents to Stripe, 30 cents to Apple, whoever it might be, it's just going directly user to user. It just opens up a whole new internet of kind of value. And so you think about there's lots of ways to think about crypto and blockchain. Some people think about it as well as Bitcoin could be the next kind of global currency, or is it going to be Libra, or what is it going to mean for like just DeFi and kind of savings and interest rates. We look at it as just very simple as we're creating internet money, and internet money is going to have almost zero fee microtransactions, and that's going to enable hundreds and thousands of new apps and $billion new market.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I really like about what you said was that you didn't take the approach of, which I feel some entrepreneurs do, of, let's build it and they will come. You built the OST infrastructure, and then you actually also decided to build a consumer app to start both drive adoption and also prove the business model.
Yeah. I looked at this back in April of last year, and I said, okay, so we could go bang our head against the wall trying to, do business development, sales meetings, trying to sell some people something that they don't even know they need yet. Or we can build them a shining example of what's possible, and then it becomes so much more real for them. And it's really proven a winning strategy. And I told our team at the time was, if you remember back to when Apple launched the iPhone, there was no app store. Apple made all the apps.
Yeah.
And by Apple making all the apps, they were able to show everyone how to make great apps. And so when they opened up the App Store, everyone was like, oh, okay, I know how to do this. I do it like they did it. The Pepo is our first app, and I'll do more too. We'll create more. We look at it as like use cases beget more use cases, beget mainstream adoption. And you can't go from zero to mainstream adoption overnight. You have to have, we build the Pepo use case, and people now, okay, there's a social media, there's a user-generated content use case. So now you have companies in the social media user-generated content space. They say, okay, I want that, or a variation of that. And then someone else is going to buy their use case and a variation of that, and the next one. And then you take our technology and you build an e-commerce use case, or you build a, kind of a offline online use case. And then people will lean into those use cases. It's like, I think one thing people forget in crypto and blockchain is, people don't buy technology, they buy solutions. People don't buy technology, they buy what job they want to get done. And you got to show them the job that's capable of getting done with that technology.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. It's about addressing pain points, right? And in fact, I'd argue the best solutions are the one where the technology is pretty much invisible, right? And the user doesn't even necessarily know that the company is using blockchain technology on the back end. They shouldn't care. It's like when I order an Uber, how exactly, like when I press that button, they can, get a car to me within a few minutes. Do I really care as a user? Do people realize they're using TCP/IP when they send email? The best solutions are the one where you address real pain points, and the technology, like people barely notice, like the technology you're actually using on there. And I feel like the best solutions don't really, and I say that as a blockchain focused investor, the best companies in the space don't put blockchain front and center, right? Because the typical user wouldn't care. What they care about is it being cheaper, faster, more transparent, traceable, and so forth. That's the key thing.
So, in the Pepo app, which, as I said, first of all, it had to be mainstream, like in terms of feeling like it's a regular app. So we gave ourselves a challenge of like the OST SDK we gave ourselves the challenge of, if Instagram wanted to adopt this, they would feel like they could adopt it. That it would be a user experience where, let's say, if every time you liked someone's Instagram photo, it transferred, like a cent from you to that person, the Instagram user would not, have any patience at all for waiting for, for transactions to be processed, for signing transactions, for writing down 12 words, none of that stuff. And so we had to obfuscate all the crypto, but yet you get all the benefit and value of it being crypto in terms of the low cost and the interoperability and the transparency and removing the middlemen. And that's what, that's our moat. I mean, that's the advantage that we have right now, that we're way ahead of the market in doing that. I mean, if you download Pepo and you check it out, you'll see you can go from download to sending someone a couple cents, in just a couple seconds, without even knowing that it's crypto that you're moving.
Yeah, and why do you need crypto? Can you talk more about the use case? What do people use Pepo for at the moment?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing, well, that's two separate questions. So one is why crypto is because we were able to set up a technology infrastructure that facilitates basically zero fee microtransactions. And so if I want to, let's say if you create a video on Pepo and I want to show that I like it, so going to support you, I can send you a couple cents and it doesn't cost anything for that transaction. And so I don't have to, let's say in the non-crypto version of that, let's say a site like Patreon where people support podcasters, it's a minimum of $3 a month with a recurring subscription because of the fees involved. But instead I can just say, okay, a couple cents for you, a couple cents for you for this one particular video. So then you think, okay, now where do you take that next? What you take it next is, all right, well, that could be on the New York Times website, for rather than paying $10 a month, you could just say, I'll pay a penny to unlock this article. And it opens up like we start one place by demonstrating what's possible, let's say with Pepo, and then you can open this up to all different kind of tangential use cases. So Pepo right now it's a shining example that crypto UX can be gorgeous, that it can be additive to the user experience. Pepo is an app where we targeted first to the crypto community. We said, let's kind of work closely with our community first before we expand out to the world, kind of like Facebook started with, say, Harvard and then college students before it went out to everyone. We said, let's get it right here first before we kind of expand too far. And in the Pepo app, it's very simple. People create 30-second videos. It can be about anything they want. If you like a video, you basically send some tokens to the person. You can also send someone directly any amount you want, so it's person-to-person payments. You also can use tokens if you want to tokens are used for signaling and for personalization. So it helps curate the experience for other people. So like if you know who I'm supporting and you're following me, then the experience gets better and more personalized for you. You can use tokens are used for spam reduction. So we have tokens being used. You can make people pay some nominal amount of money if they want to reply to a video on Pepo, so you don't get spam. So only people are serious. You can give bounties and rewards for best replies. We're soon introducing pay to message, so you can say, if you want to get in my inbox, maybe it costs a couple bucks if I don't know who you are, as a way to kind of a spam filter for instant messaging. And we're introducing some really interesting things around communities and groups and channels based on feedback from early users. So what's great about Pepo right now is as I said, it's both a showcase of our tools, but it's also a really cool app in its own, and it's really taken off. And we take the approach of let the community take it where they want to. We do, our models around user interviews. We talk to people every single day. It's something that I'm religious about almost. Like we do, 5 interviews a day on most days, 30-minute interviews, where we just have conversations, talk to people, and try to find, where are the parts that they're passionate about or have a pain point, and try to figure out the emotional points and how do we fix them? How do we make it better for them?
Yeah, that's really key, right? When I was at Facebook, we kept doing that also all the time, just because we felt that just gives us so many insights that we wouldn't realize otherwise. It's one thing for the product team to sit around the table and develop, hypotheses. It's another thing to just talk directly with your users and get their feedback and figure out how can you make their experience better. So a couple of questions on what you just said, Jason. First of all, why do you need a native token? Why did you decide to go that route rather than, say, use ETH or DAI?
Yeah. Yeah, so great question. So one of the first things to understand for those who are more crypto savvy is when we looked at kind of how do you embed crypto microtransactions into any app, mainstream apps, not just kind of new dApps, but also mainstream apps. We looked at that problem 4 years ago, and one of the first things we said we would need to do is to offload the heavy transaction volumes that might be, let's say if you had like an app like Instagram or even like a smaller one with 10 million users or 5 million users, if everyone was doing likes all day and every like transferred a token, that's so many transactions, you wouldn't want to have those transactions on Ethereum layer 1. So we'd have to first move the transactions onto a layer 2. And so
Is that because of the scalability issue, the network getting congested?
it's really bad thing. First of all, it's like you wouldn't want to pay 2 or 3 cents for an ETH transaction for a 1 cent transaction. So, so one is the cost. The second is the congestion. But but we're actually quite okay with Ethereum being slow and costly because we find that Ethereum is for us is like the ultimate kind of bearer of truth. So we prove all of our transactions on layer 2 back on the layer 1 Ethereum. So we leverage Ethereum as kind of like the security of the overall network, and then that network should be slower than like this, let's say like the app token network, because it is that security layer of if you earn a token on layer 2 and it's backed by a token on layer 1, that token is backed by something on Ethereum, so that you can always get the value that's locked on layer 1. So we wrote a protocol back in mid 2017. It's called OpenST, which basically essentially just does that. It is you can lock any ERC20 token in a smart contract on layer 1 Ethereum and create a representation, kind of a mirror image of that on our layer 2 and call it whatever you want. We call it they're brand tokens. You can call it Pepo coin, you can call it Tomer coin, whatever you want. And the value of it is derived by whatever you have staked on layer 1. And what you stake on layer 1 can be whatever you want. It can be ETH, it could be DAI, it could be the OST token if you want to use the native token of our network that's also used to reward the validators on layer 2 and as well as for the sealers who are helping prove the layer 2 transactions back on layer 1. It's up to you. So on Pepo, we built it on OST just to show everyone that it's possible. We have other clients who are launching with OST as the base token. We have other clients who are launching with DAI. Other clients are launching with ETH. USDC, we don't care. We're agnostic. We just want you to build what's right for you.
I like that approach. So you basically give the developers the freedom to decide what they think is best for their particular use case.
Yeah, I don't believe at all ever in kind of forcing people to do something a certain way. They should figure out what's best for their business case. And what we found so far is that developers and companies who are using, let's say, app tokens as kind of rewards or as a new type of currency in an app, a lot of them want to use it based on a fluctuating currency, because they want people to feel like it is actually something that people come back and check often, and that it's not just a a stable dollar. But it's up to them. Others who have, let's say, some companies are working with who have tens of millions or hundreds millions of users, and we are working with some, they go right away to stablecoin. They're like, we don't want to expose our end users to any volatility, which is fine. Like we say, it's up to you, whatever you want. And in terms of having a token that has some fluctuation based on the market, that's where when most of our clients, if they look at the choice of, let's say, ETH or OST, the token, they usually end up with OST because they say, well, if we choose ETH, it's basically the value of ETH is dependent on the overall market. We choose OST, it's just based on other folks like us who are building on OST. And so it's a way for them to participate in the network itself.
Yeah, makes sense. And the second question I wanted to ask you about what you described earlier, why ETH? Why did you decide to build on top of Ethereum, an ERC20 token? Did you look at other alternatives?
I mean, that for us was an easy one. We looked at, we wanted to leverage the smart contract kind of structure of Ethereum and the technology. We run a full EVM, a full Ethereum virtual machine on our layer 2, and we have the user experience that we have in Pepo, which is the same the wallet SDK that's embedded in the Pepo app, and the same way that's going to be embedded in other apps. It's only possible because we're running all these smart contracts on layer 2 that are exactly basically Ethereum smart contracts. And so we went with Ethereum because of the smart contract capabilities. And then second, it's, the most developers are building on Ethereum, and they're continuing to enhance the network and the technology, the smart contract capabilities, and that's only going to get richer and richer. And our approach was go where the developers are. And so if we want something that 5 years from now is continuing to evolve, and to be assured that it's being evolved on the best the best developers are working on it. Right now, that's Ethereum, far and away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone that I know who's building something of anything of interest in crypto is building on Ethereum.
I mean, it's the clear leader, like you're saying, right? The vast majority of developers right now are building on top of Ethereum.
Yeah.
Period.
I look at there's two groups out there. There's people who are building on Ethereum, which is like the 90% of people who I know who are kind of building really interesting kind of projects on crypto. And then there's a 10% who have in their mind that they could be the next Ethereum, and I wish them luck.
Yeah. And coming from you, I keep thinking about like the Amazon example. It's like competing with Ethereum. It probably can be done, but it's a very tall mountain to climb.
Yeah, and it's like the thing is, you're not just competing with the technology; you're competing with tens of thousands of developers who are committed to the technology right now. That's what makes it really hard. And so you have an open source community who are all really committed. And you think about how much kind of passion there is right now about building real use cases. There's just so much momentum behind Ethereum that I think it'd be very hard to compete with it. Now, people will, because if you see like probably if not the number one or then the number two greatest return on investment in the last 10 years was Ethereum, and so, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you try to build the next Ethereum if you think you have a better idea?
So, thinking about Pepo, Jason, how do you distinguish Pepo from the many other social media apps out there? I know specifically you take great pride in the user experience on Pepo. Would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first thing we set out to do is to first find like an area where existing social media wasn't serving kind of user kind of needs. So the idea was not to just create another social app for the sake of social app, or just create a crypto social app because for this just because you can. It was, we really went out and tried to find a place and a kind of a need that people had for something in addition to what they're already using. And the process we went through to figure that out was we interviewed 1,000 plus people in 2019. And we started off just talking to people around their social media consumption, what they were using different social media platforms for, whether it was Twitter or YouTube or Twitch or Discord or TikTok or LinkedIn or whatever it might be, Facebook, Instagram. And when we do these interviews, you're basically trying to find people's motivations, their pain points, and so their needs. And the whole purpose of this was, we didn't want to just, as I said, we didn't want to just build something. We wanted to build something that people would use and would really want. And so there were a few themes that we kept hearing as we talked to people, and we kind of, the way you do these interviews is you hear something, you hear it from 5 people, you hear it from 10 people, and then you build a hypothesis around it, and then you do the next set of interviews focusing on that.
Right.
And a few themes we kept hearing. One was, we found that that in a lot of kind of areas that kind of there were some gaps of kind of people wanting to feel more connected to communities, to specific people who shared their interests, and they felt like social kind of social media like outlets like Twitter were great for kind of let's say getting kind of instant flashbulbs of kind of like people just throwing things out there, but very anonymous, and the text format with 100 the short character format was leaving people feeling a little empty. They felt like they were following kind of a like the headlines, but not being part of a conversation, not being part of a community. And we felt that, and we heard from the people who were joining, say, like Telegram chats, that it felt a little more connected in community, and same with like Discord, but it was very chaotic. And then the other hand, we also found that on new kind of emerging, say, video platforms like TikTok, that the short video format was delivering kind of a area of authenticity that was missing from other social media. And I guess like Instagram stories were very polished. TikTok was kind of people kind of showing off and expressing kind of like their kind of entertainment. And then over on the business side, we found that, like, let's say like LinkedIn was a place where people found like it had become just full of a lot of spam and had like a lot of just people hawking stuff and kind of marketing and kind of inbox spam. And so what we kept hearing is one is we found a need for people to get more signal and less noise, so the ability to connect to people who shared their interests, who are part of the same community, or kind of whether it's an established community that they're in or something that community they want to be part of or join, how they could connect to those people and be part of something and kind of feeling belonging to something, but without all the noise and without all the spam and without all the harassment and the bullying. And then we also heard from people who are creators, whether it's developers, makers, to bloggers, podcasters, that they were looking for better ways to connect with their audience, to stand out, to build support, without a feeling they were begging and without feeling like that they were asking for tips. So I know that's a lot, but you combine these things, and we kind of came up with was this create a format for people to connect based on shared interests with a very authentic, kind of raw, kind of person-to-person video format, to use cryptocurrency tokens as a way to both support people and then to personalize the experience, curate the experience, to help eliminate the spam, and to combine these elements into creating kind of a new type of community network. And where we've started is kind of creating the social app for the crypto community, kind of we call it, but really what we're doing is we're creating a community of communities of communities. And crypto, I think one of the biggest learnings we've had even in the first kind of few months of Pepo is that we thought starting with crypto was a niche. And what we found is actually it's not a niche, because even within crypto itself, there's so many niches. And so you have like people who are, so now what we're actually doing is getting even more specific and more granular. And so we're launching in a couple of weeks Pepo channels for people who have a very specific interest or are already part of a community to kind of connect to each other and have a much richer experience in the app. And so whether you're interested in DeFi, connect with other people interested in DeFi. If you're interested in, let's say, Bitcoin maximalism, you can connect around that. If you want to connect around ETH 2.0, connect around that. So, and that's following the users and listening to them and trying to figure out how do you make the actual application more useful and rewarding for them.
Yeah, makes sense. How do you get the word out? How do you actually get more and more people to Pepo to try it out and to open these channels?
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting you ask us. Like, for the most part, all we've done to start is to, we got the word out around DevCon, the annual Ethereum conference was in Osaka, Japan in October, where we launched a beta of the app. We had about a quarter to a third of all DevCon attendees check out the app. We had some good retention from that, so people kept using it. And then we just kind of looked for people who were, active on Twitter, talking about crypto. And interestingly enough, we purposely said, let's not look for people who have tens of thousands of followers, because they might not need this yet. But let's look for people who were already kind of hustling and looking for making connections, trying to make a name for themselves in the crypto community, but they hadn't yet kind of made it as a big star. And we just reached out to a bunch of them on Twitter and said, hey, check this out. And frankly, that's all we've done so far, because we've told ourselves as a team is, before we start to really promote this, let's make sure we figured out that we've created something that people find valuable. And so, I keep coming back to, we do interviews and interviews and interviews. We have 7 today, we had 5 yesterday, and we talk to users. We focus on users who are really grinding in the app. I would say grinding is like they've created, every week they come back and make new videos. Every week they're watching.
Just to clarify, when you say interviews, you mean user interviews where you interview the users? And
like literally myself, Emily on our team, other people on the team, we get on calls with people and we just talk to them and say, why are you using this? What are you trying to get out of it? And it's amazing. Like there's lots of motivations that people have for using Pepo right now.
Yeah. What are the common themes that you see so far?
I mean, it's interesting. So I would say two related, but as I said, very different. So one theme is just the people, like I'd say overwhelmingly, there's this desire amongst crypto people to see a really successful crypto use case. And so it's kind of like they're rooting for the platform, they're rooting for the app, which means you're also rooting for the industry, right? And so because of that, it's a really interesting motivation. So it's not just about kind of I need this. It's about I want this to be successful because then it's going to show something to the community and to the world. That makes people also somewhat forgiving of, like, let's say all the features aren't complete yet, or they're willing to put up with certain things.
Mhm.
The other motivation we keep hearing is I want to connect with people who share my interest and in a meaningful way, meaningful connections. And that's something that we're really now kind of really diving into and kind of leaning into, because those connections could be, as I said, real world connections. It could be, everyone going to Eat Denver, where, we're going to be the official social app of Eat Denver in February. And we're creating a channel on Pepo all around that. So it could be around an event, or it could be around a established community. So it could be like Bitcoiners in Tel Aviv, whatever it might be. Or it could be just people who share an interest. And how do you make the connections that they make through Pepo meaningful and make them feel like they're getting something that they wouldn't be getting elsewhere? And we think we're really close to it. And we're really excited about where it's going over the next few weeks.
Got it. So sounds like you're still working on the product market fit. You're pretty close to getting it right. And then you're really going to drive more marketing budgets towards acquiring users.
Well, I'd say everything you said except for the last point. I don't know if we'll ever need marketing budget. We'll see. I mean, when we do interviews, one of the questions we always ask is, which of your friends have you told about Pepo, and how do you explain it to them? And when we get to the point where every interview is people saying, I've invited 10 friends because this is, they're part of my group or they're part of my community, that'll be the marketing. And so it's very different in creating something, let's say, like, TikTok is entertainment and it's all about serendipity. So it's like, I open the app and I hope I see something that makes me laugh. Pepo is all about community. So it's very purposeful. It's like, everyone who's going to Eat Denver, join this group and we all benefit from it.
Right. Makes sense. I mean, if you can go it, by word of mouth and organically, that's the best, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And so we'll see. But look, we like our chances, and we feel like with the process. I always tell our team, it's like, stick to the process. Stick to the process. The process.
Right.
Talk to the users. All the answers lie in our users.
Absolutely. And what's the business model, Jason? How do you guys make money?
Yeah, so a few things. So, OST technology is what powers the Pepo app, and our core business model is selling that technology to businesses who want to build apps like Pepo. And so we have, basically, there's as I said, there's a wallet SDK that you use to kind of, to basically integrate the wallet into any app. And the way that we're charging companies for it is, they pay us per active user per month. And so our introductory pricing right now is 25 cents per active user per month. And an active user is a user who transacts using our technology in that month. So just to make it really clear, let's say if you had 100,000 users and 10,000 of them did a transaction this month, you'd pay us 10,000 times 25 cents in that month.
So you only pay on those who actually transact, not on all that. Okay.
Yeah, and that way, like, it's like you're paying for the value you're getting. And we did a lot of market testing on this, and we think this is the right place for us to be right now. It'll surely evolve as we mature. But we've got a dozen plus companies from various sizes of startups to companies with tens of millions of users who are building with this technology right now. We have some great launches coming. February and March, April. This year is all about kind of delivering use cases, and Pepo is the showcase. Our approach to Pepo is if Pepo shows everyone what's possible, and then Pepo also shows that you can have a crypto-powered app that becomes mainstream on its own right, then the whole thing will be even more successful. Now, if we turn around and a year from now, Pepo has tens of millions of users and has really cracked the code on kind of more authentic community, I'm sure we'll figure out a business model there as well.
Right, but to be clear, it doesn't sound like you're planning to introduce advertising of any sort.
No, not at all right now. No, I mean, our goal is if right now creators are making money through Pepo, so they earn Pepo coins whenever someone likes their video. We have. Actually, pretty amazing is of the first a few thousand Pepo users. They've done over $5,000 worth of purchases of Pepo coins in the app stores, and so we don't take a margin on that today, but we could in the future. We've had a number of folks, thousands of dollars worth of kind of cash out redemptions for gift cards and other things, and we could take a margin on that in the future. But right now, we're really focused right now, create user value, and then we'll work on monetization later on Pepo.
Right, makes sense. And what's next on your roadmap? Like when you think about this year, what are you most excited about?
I mean, the things that we're really excited about is I'll name three things coming. So one is for ETH Denver, which is the 14th of February. So basically just a few weeks from now, we are introducing a whole bunch of new features on Pepo. In particular, Pepo channels, so enable kind of groups and events to organize, on Pepo, and to have kind of their own space on Pepo. There'll also be a number of ways to have better kind of video creation and better kind of use of the feed on Pepo. We also, as one of the channels, as I said, will be ETH Denver. Another one is going to be a project we're doing with Consensus that's going to be launching at ETH Denver that we're very excited about, and we'll have more information about that soon. So that's one thing. A second thing is we are working with a media company it's a content business that has about 1 million visits to their website every month, reading their articles that they publish, and they are building basically their app right now that has our OST technology built into it, and will enable their users to earn tokens by engaging with the content, by engaging with their sponsors and advertisers, and then to use the tokens back in some very unique ways. So that's something we're looking to launch in Q1 of this year. And then we've been working with a major kind of offline online kind of retailer experience that has they have 95 kind of locations and very loyal kind of it's almost like a cult-like kind of customer base. And we're looking at the first launch with them is imminent, and then rolling out to hundreds of thousands of their customers over the course of the next few months. And so some real exciting stuff there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are big numbers, especially in the crypto space.
Yeah, I mean, so it's I tell you, having worked on this for 4 years now, it's so encouraging to kind of see some of this stuff, coming to fruition. I mean, when we got to the point last year in March, April, we saw, all right, our tools are usable. And then it's like, okay, now we turn from building to building plus launching use cases. And now we see kind of going into this year that like we've got use cases lined up in February, March, April, like it's just back, and each one creates another one, We've had so many people coming to us in the last few months saying, I want to do what you're doing in Pepo, I want to do that in my app. And so it's like, people need to see it's real. And so every time we launch one of these use cases, I think it's going to create a cascading effect where we get more and more and more.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? As an entrepreneur, when you work on something, it's like your baby. When you see other people start using it, I mean, it's a feeling unlike anything else.
Absolutely, yeah.
How do you protect users? How do you protect them from abuse, being trolled? Or maybe you don't, and it's just an open platform and anyone can express their opinion in any way they want.
Yeah, I mean, Pepo as a platform right now is interesting that the authenticity of being kind of front-facing camera, people, there's no abuse on the platform because it's very hard to be abusive when you have to show your face. And so that's one thing that people comment a lot on is that like the kind of the rawness and the authenticity of Pepo keeps it a kind of a nice environment.
Right. So you have to show your face?
Yeah. It's like you can't respond to someone else's video by just like filming a wall.
Mm-hmm.
Delete that, right? So it's like,
Right.
so yeah, and so by being you, and people really they take pride in who they are, and they're building like their personal brand. We've had users like one of the number one feature requests is how they can create even a better reflection of their persona on Pepo. So I want to like edit the thumbnail when I kind of post a video or share it, and make sure that people see me as I am. And so so we're committed to authenticity and I guess, realness right now.
Got it. And wanted to ask you also about the team. So I know you're based in Berlin, right? But a large portion of the team is actually based in India. How do you manage a team that's distributed geographically? Can you share some best practices and how
Yeah.
do you do it?
I mean, the first thing just to point out is that I've been doing it for 12 years, so it's not something that everyone can do easily. One of the reasons why it works really well for us is just my co-founder Sunil and I, we started working on a company called Social Media in 2008, and we've co-founded that company. We had 12 people on the team. Of that, 11 were in Pune, India. Myself was in New York, but I basically lived in Pune for half the year that year. And we had that as a nice success, and then we sold that and went to the next company, and we kept working together. And so a lot of that original team is still with us. And so we've built up this kind of, one is you have like this trust of how to work, how to work together, how to resolve conflict, and how to get things done that you just build up over 12 years working together. And the average person on the Pune team of ours is, I think, with us 7 years at this point, which is extraordinary, right?
Oh, wow.
And but then also it's just you also learn the cadence. You learn how to how to do you do the tools that you use, whether it's Zoom calls and Notion boards, or the tools change over time. It used to be Basecamp, now it's Notion. At one point it was Jira. We now everything's we're doing it in Notion. There's a group of us that are in Pune a week out of every 4 or 5 weeks, and you figure out your rhythm, and you do that. And our team right now is we're about eight or nine people in Berlin. We're 40 people in Pune, India. We have 3 in Hong Kong and 4 in New York, which you have to coordinate all that. But there's also a lot of benefit of having the team spread out like that.
And why did you decide to build the team out of India? So I get that you had prior experience building teams out of there, but how did you get there to begin with?
It wasn't ever even a choice. So it's like I remember that as like I think about the other way is I never thought of not doing it, because Sunil and I have built 6 companies together. So there was like 2016. It was like, okay, which one are we building now?
And he's based out of India?
Out of Pune, yeah. Sorry, I should mention that.
Got
So
it.
yeah, the more proper question is why Berlin, and why Berlin is pretty much for the most part is because there's 2 people on our team. One is Francesco, who is the head of product, who I work very closely with, and the other is Ben, who's the head of blockchain, who are based here in Berlin. And and then my home base is Berlin, and so the 3 of us, our home base is Berlin, and the 3 of us go to India together a week every month. But it's like if Francesco and Ben were in New York, we'd be based in New York. If they were in Lisbon, we'd be based in Lisbon.
Right. I love that line of thinking. So just getting to the end of the interview, a couple of questions more broadly, Jason, about the market. What are you excited about right now in the crypto or the blockchain space in general, beyond, OST and Pepo? Either specific companies or projects, or maybe even just trends that you see that you're excited about in the space.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have like these blinders on of like what we're focused on, which is use cases, adoption, and so I think the thing that I'm most excited about is I think 2020 is the year that we turn from a lot of you had like the boom of 2017, the crashes of 2018, 2019, and 2020 is like the year of use cases. And whether it's through us or through other projects, I think when we start to see that okay, people are using this crypto stuff, and it's not just being used to for trading, but it's actually being used for for user benefit, and to create new types of services that are that are unique. And that I think is one thing that I think is the 2020 is going to be known for, the beginning of really interesting use cases. And then the other is I think we gone from blockchain being mostly about the plumbing and the infrastructure to now turning towards user experience, and because that goes hand in hand with kind of use cases and adoption. And I think it's most encouraging for me to see like a lot of teams that are kind of focused on not just how does this stuff work and how to kind of deploy it, but how to get people to adopt it and how to create, I call it, create crypto user experiences for humans, not just for developers. And so I think we're going to see a lot of really awesome innovations this year on UX. And then more broadly, I think, I don't get, too hyped up about kind of the, what's going to happen with ETH 1.0 to 2.0 migration or Ethereum versus Bitcoin or other battles for layer one chains. I look at it as like, focus on getting these products in the hands of people, and the rest will follow.
Right. So addressing real pain points and solving for real needs of users.
Exactly.
And crypto is just a tool to get there. Yeah, makes sense.
That's actually really interesting. So I've got a pitch deck that I show to, corporate pitch deck of like our company that I show to people and explaining what we do. And blockchain is not even mentioned to the third page, because what we do is we enable, low cost, almost like zero fee microtransactions. And the benefit of that is that you can embed that into any application and start to have any in-app action, transfer value and the step function change from kind of today's credit card processing. Then page 3 is, now how do we do that? Through blockchain, right? And that's on purpose, because blockchain is the enabling technology. Crypto is the enabling technology. It's not the what, it's the how.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that all the time. Some of the entrepreneurs I talk with that I'm most excited about actually don't put blockchain front and center, and sometimes they don't even mention that until, we get to the more technical due diligence, right? Because it's about the problems that you solve and why is that important and how big is that opportunity, right? How do you do that? We can get there and we will get there at some point, but it shouldn't really matter much to the users, right? And I keep giving that example of, when I pull up my phone and I press that button and call an Uber, do I really care as a user how come once I press that button within like 3 minutes, a car shows up and picks me up?
Exactly.
I don't, right? It just solves a need. So completely agree with that. And I think actually many entrepreneurs do a disservice to themselves by putting crypto and blockchain so much the center of what they're doing. The marketing and the way you talk about your company shouldn't really be about that until you get to the how, like you said.
Yeah, and look, we'll get there. I think it's because a lot of blockchain's been talking, it's like talking to ourselves. And now as we go and we talk to the world, you talk about solutions, not about technology.
Yeah, I mean, the best solutions are the ones where the backend technology is invisible. So you barely realize it's there. Like the best solution actually on top of blockchain would probably be something that you use and you don't even realize that you're using blockchain on the backend.
Exactly.
So last question before we finish, Jason. We talked a lot earlier about Ethereum. What's your take on Bitcoin?
I think Bitcoin is still the original, right? And it's still the the most. If to bet on one global currency, digital currency, I would bet on Bitcoin over any other right now. But I think Ethereum is going to be the leading kind of development platform for cryptocurrency. And we'll see where those two go over time. I don't, maybe at one point it becomes a one versus the other. I think like the fights between the maximalists are a little kind of overdrawn right now, but in the future it could be. If I were to bet on, Bitcoin over Libra, I would bet on Bitcoin right now.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with the notion that the Bitcoin and Ethereum are probably more complementary, at least the way they're set up now, rather than one versus the other. Jason, thanks so much for taking the time to do this interview. A super interesting discussion, and appreciate you being so open and honest also about your previous experience.
Hey, look, thanks for having me, and keep at it. I love what you're doing. I'd love to be a part of this, and hopefully this whole community, we can move forward together and show everyone that there's real value to be had in crypto, not just an appreciation of the assets, but an appreciation of the experience.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode of The Blockchain VC and want to help bring more awareness to the space, I'd really appreciate it if you can rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. This only takes a few seconds and helps get the word out.